Get ready for a new chapter in global trade tensions as US President Donald Trump has unveiled plans to impose a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports into the United States. This move adds to the existing duties and is expected to shake up the global markets. On top of this, Trump has announced that he will introduce reciprocal tariffs on other countries, which will match the tariff rates imposed by each nation. These new tariffs are all set to roll out in the coming days, potentially changing the landscape of international trade, and countries exporting steel and aluminum to the United States will certainly feel the impact. So how does this affect India, a nation that isn't a top steel exporter to the United States but still has skin in the game? While India's annual steel exports to the US stand at around $3 billion, which is much smaller compared to other heavyweights like Canada and Brazil, the ripple effects from Trump's previous tariff actions are still fresh. When the US implemented similar tariffs during Trump's earlier term, it triggered a cascade of protectionist measures from countries around the world, and India wasn't immune. For instance, the European Union, fearing a surge of redirected Chinese steel exports from the US, imposed its own restrictions on steel imports. This had a direct negative effect on India's steel exports to Europe as the market tightened. Meanwhile, China, having nowhere else to offload its steel, turned its attention to India, resulting in increased steel imports from the Chinese market. This shift has led to a higher volume of steel flooding into Indian markets, putting pressure on domestic steel producers. Looking at the numbers, India's steel imports have been climbing steadily. According to official data from April to September 2024, India's steel imports surged to 5.51 million tons compared to 3.66 million tons during the same period over the year before. The increase in imports from China has been particularly notable, rising from 1.02 million tons to 1.85 million tons over the same period. This surge in imports, coupled with Trump's new tariffs, could create more challenges for the Indian steel manufacturers as domestic demand for the steel remains high and more foreign steel is entering the market. On the other hand, on the aluminum front, the US is overwhelmingly reliant on Canada, which supplies about 79% of its primary aluminum imports. This highlights a key difference between steel and aluminum trade, as India is not a major exporter of aluminum to the United States. However, the global impact of these tariffs will still be felt, especially if more countries impose tariffs in response to the US's actions. India could face increased competitions in the global aluminum market as exporters pivot their trade strategies. India's steel ministry has meanwhile already shown concern over rising imports. Last year in December, the ministry, in collaboration with the Commerce Department, proposed imposing a 25% safeguard duty on certain steel products entering India to help protect local producers. This is a proactive move to shield Indian manufacturers from the effects of both Trump's tariffs and the growing influx of foreign steel. The government is also looking at various other measures to ensure domestic production isn't hurt by these changing trade dynamics. With the global steel and aluminum markets now in influx, India's strategy moving forward could include revisiting trade agreements and strengthening domestic industries. The nation's growing reliance on foreign steel and aluminum may drive policymakers to take more steps towards ensuring self-reliance in key sectors, especially with China and other competitors becoming increasingly dominant in the market.